Real quickly, today is the last day to take advantage of the 30% off discount. If you guys head over to gfuel.com, you want to try something out, whatever it is, with code ESPRESSO at checkout, you get 30% off your entire order. So if you're interested, check that out, but now back to the regularly scheduled content. Yesterday, Black Ops 4 introduced us to the first of what may be many specialists throughout the year. We're guaranteed a couple, but our first introduction to the post-launch specialist gave us a hacker of sorts, one that can take out enemy equipment, enemy specialist abilities, and even hack your entire hunter interface in-game. So naturally, as if you jumped on it yesterday, you probably noticed that every single lobby was filled up with a max of 2, or if you're in the game mode that only had 1, it would get picked almost immediately. And therefore, you might have had some situations where it was either very advantageous for you or your team, or it might have been incredibly annoying being spammed by a system hack or an EMP grenade every so often. So today in this video, we're gonna break down everything you need to know about Zero, so not only can you master Zero for yourself, but you can also effectively learn how to counter Zero so that she's not all that much of an issue in game for you, or at least less of an issue as if you were just playing with a regular class setup or something similar. But that said, there's a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right into it. Let's start out with what Zero has to offer, what she brings to the table. When you first take a look at Zero, you end up seeing there's an ability of an EMP grenade as well as the ultimate of an ice pick. Now the EMP grenade lasts for about 5 seconds and it removes your HUD capabilities or also the ability to call in your streaks or specialists. You can still heal while EMP'd, and if you're the one throwing the EMP as Zero, you'll end up getting 10 points per every enemy affected by that EMP grenade. So it's not as effective as other specialists, and of course I still think if you're going for just somebody that farms points, Crash is by far still the main specialist you want to take, but in terms of discussing what this does here, it's not all that much in rewarding you in terms of points, but it does become beneficial. That said, it's also incredibly useful against special items as well as different ground-based streaks. So for this, the big things that I always come into contact with are the razor wire, the mesh mines, the barricade, that kind of stuff is all one hit. Now, there is an exception in terms of the barricade. It's not a one hit in which it destroys it, but it disables the microwave effect in which that it'll still stay up as protection and cover, but it doesn't do any damage to you if you end up running through it. So if somebody is posted up, say in Bell Tower, well then they won't necessarily kill you because you don't have anywhere to back into if you walk in a line of fire. Instead, it won't do any damage, but it can still be hurled over and you can end up taking out the enemy that way. Now, as for the ice pick ability, this is actually rather useful if you use it in a proper way. But what it does is it hacks and destroys enemy equipment first and foremost. That's one of the big things that a lot of players will really be interested in using it for, but it'll end up doing things like destroying the Dart, RCXD, Sniper's Nest, Mantis, Thresher, Gunship. It'll hack things like the CUAV and UAV, Care Package, Sentry, and the Drone Squad, but then there are some oddities like the Strike Team in which it'll destroy it if they're still in the helicopter and coming down. But if it ends up touching down, the ice pick won't do anything to the soldiers already dropped in. But on top of that, you also end up getting a system hack ability on enemies. This is something that lasts 30 seconds in most cases, but as we'll discuss in a second, there is a slight counter to this, though not entirely, but something that can kind of lessen the pain a little bit. But it'll also disable your HUD, or rather scramble it is probably a better way to put it, as it will do with the score, minimap, streak tracker, and everything like that. Now, one thing that I also noticed yesterday as well is that if you end up taking damage while you're hacked, you won't be able to regen your health because it scrambles the regeneration option, which I'm not entirely too sure if I'm a fan of this or not. It's quite some time to not be able to heal, even more so than Firebreak's Reactor Core burn feature, but I guess it does play into the abilities of taking away your specialist equipment or other functionality as well. One additional part that kind of disorients players that may be system hacked is that it adds minimap icons to wherever you are around. Wherever is viewable on your minimap, there will be icons that pop up for a few seconds, then disappear, and they're completely random, but can be very disorienting if you don't have any real knowledge of where enemies are at before you are system hacked. So while you might not have any way to guarantee when an enemy is going to call it in so you can know when to check your minimap and where your teammates are in relation to the enemy, it is still kind of something that really now promotes a little more heads up on the map flow and map awareness. So if you can kind of feel out where the enemies are coming from and where they may generally be, that's something you might be able to disregard some of those minimap icons that do pop up, but they are quite annoying and do last the duration of the system hack itself. But that said, let's talk about how to actually use them, or rather when to use them, because Zero is one you very well may come in contact with where somebody's just spamming it. They get it immediately and then they automatically use it. But Zero, I think, is a little more advantageous if situationally used in a more calculated manner. So for things like the EMP, you can be a little more careless with this one because it seems like it's on a refill of around 75 seconds without the equipment charge equipped. So you do get a little more quickly, and you can be a little lenient with how you end up using it. You don't have to necessarily restrict how you play just to a certain area. You might be able to toss one here and there if you want to. But when it comes to your ultimate of the ice pick, that's where one, admittedly, I wouldn't really advocate for using it immediately. Things like your Tempest, your War Machine, your Purifier, your Attack 5, while they all can be more calculated and situationally used to better your team at any given point, it's stuff that you don't necessarily lose out on if you pop it immediately. But when it comes to your ultimate of the ice pick, this one I'd say keep in your pocket for a little bit, because while yes, you normally can get 2 per TDM game, using them at the right time is absolutely huge. Sure, it's nice to get the bonus points if an enemy takes out somebody that you ended up hacking, as for the specialist himself, but saving them for the right time, you can end up controlling or taking out crucial streaks that could otherwise change the entire flow and dynamic of the game. So if somebody ends up getting a helicopter, you see them on the scoreboard doing quite well, if they end up getting a helicopter, you can actually hack that and take advantage of it for yourself, and then it helps your team out. If somebody ends up getting a gunship and they're spawn trapping your team greatly, you can end up hacking the gunship and destroying it completely. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that if you hold it for a smarter situation, it can totally help your team out instead of just annoying the enemy with the 15 to 30 second system hack. But from your perspective, even if you know how to control and use Zero to the best of your abilities, how do you really counter Zero? Because right now, a lot of people are going to want to play as Zero because she's the brand new character. She's the brand new content in Black Ops 4. So you're probably going to come into lobbies where you are going to get spammed by the brand new specialist, the ability, and the ultimate. So how do you exactly counter it? Well, unfortunately, there's not all that many ways, and no ways that really completely counter Zero at its core, but there are some ways that do help in mitigating some of the effects that they have on you, and also some things do get canceled out more than others. So that said, let's talk about each individual piece. Firstly, let's start out with the EMP, the ability that comes around every 75 seconds like we just discussed. There actually is a way to counter this, that being Tac Mask. Like we mentioned, as is the standard class setup, if you don't have Tac Mask, you'll end up being hit from an EMP at actually a decent range. I don't have the exact in-game numbers because measuring that kind of stuff in terms of meters is relatively tough, and so early on, I don't think anybody's pulled the game files to find the hard-coded statistics. But if you're in range of this, it will disable your HUD and scramble everything for 5 seconds. However, with Tac Mask, you can end up withstanding a direct impact from this even, in which you won't have any of those effects. Though, granted, if you do get direct impacted, it'll do 15 damage to you, but I digress. You'll end up having everything completely the same and as if nothing ever went off. So, with other things like Fire Breaks, Reactor Core, Ajax's 9-bang, already on the playing field a lot, might not be the worst thing to run on your class setup to add another thing you can counter to your list. A weird one that's rather situational is actually a trophy system as well that works. This one, if you end up getting in a line of sight with it, you can end up countering somebody throwing an EMP. But if they throw it around a wall or it's something in which it's not directly in front of the trophy system for it to blow it up, then the effects will still stand. Let's talk about the ice pick, because the EMP is kind of annoying, yes, but it doesn't last as long as what you have a 30-second system hack lasting for. So the big one that I can end up saying here for the ice pick is Tac Mask. Run that one because this will decrease the ability and the time. As we mentioned, the system hack lasts for 30 seconds base and standard, to which there are some other side effects you'd probably want to get rid of as fast as possible. The one that pops into my mind is if you take damage and you can't heal. So that's something that if you run Tac Mask, it doesn't completely negate the effect of the system hack, but it cuts that time by 50%. So it's only 15 seconds that you're affected rather than 30. And with a 30-second timer, which feels like an eternity, 15 seconds off that is fantastic. Another thing you can end up doing is actually throwing an EMP yourself if you run Zero to counter Zero. Now this only happens, again, situationally where it works, because if you're in proximity of somebody using Zero at that point, it will counter whatever they haven't gotten to hacking around. So if they start hacking and say take out a streak or something, but they haven't gotten to a single player, then it won't give the effect onto the player of the system hack, but it will still destroy or hack that score streak they ended up getting. But if you can end up getting the EMP off fast enough, it will take out their entire ultimate and still cost the player any progress they made up until that point. Now the third and final counter that I've come across so far is simply killing the enemy. not only one, can you end up killing them before they make too much damage on your team, but also if you are system hacked, you can end up killing the player that did the system hack and it will completely get rid of that system hack on you. So it's kind of weird how it's tethered to the player and them being alive, but it is something that does work out. And if you are going on that mad hunt to try and get your system restored, there is an icon that pops up above the hacker's head in which it can be seen around the map. Doesn't matter, it can be through walls, it can be right on top of them. It doesn't matter, you can end up seeing where they're at. So you can hunt them down with relative ease. It's just a matter of getting there in time to cancel any further progress they make on other hacks, or if it's something that you can end up just having a relative location of where they are to restore your system. But ultimately, Zero has a few counters, not necessarily everything that 100% counters Zero, but that's kind of the same way all specialists are. I don't know if I'm necessarily a big fan of how specialists at their core have been handled. I think Black Ops 3 being one or the other, a specialist weapon or ability, was a great way to go, and sometimes both seems kind of like a participation medal of some sorts, but while we 100% can't counter Zero, it does fall in line to how we can kind of counter other specialists also. But rounding out this video, my thoughts on Zero, I'm kind of on the fence. I do hate how quickly it takes out some streaks, especially if you're going on a really decent gun streak or going on a score streak that is worthwhile and you actually are getting something that can really help out your team. Kind of a bummer how quickly that can be taken away, but it is nice to have something that kind of cancels out other specialists at a time. So I might by necessity end up in recent times being a Zero main, but I don't know, I'm still kind of on the fence. There are other options I think that are better, but it's just a matter of necessity trying to counter other people that may have to use Zero to counter. That makes sense. I don't know, but regardless, I want to let you guys know about this because I know a lot of people jumping into Black Ops 4 may have the same irritations as I did, in which you're just spammed 24/7 with Zero's new ability. So that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there anything that I may have missed here in terms of effective counters? Anything I may have missed on how to master Zero? Whatever it is, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, multiplayer, blackout, zombies, you name it, we got you covered. The best of updates, news, information, tips, tricks, guides, best class setups, all that good stuff, we got you covered on the channel. So anything that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And if you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those links are down there in the description below. Best places to get connected outside of YouTube. That said, thank you guys all so much for watching. Hopefully you guys had a fantastic day. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.